All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm joined by District Attorney Brian Seaman and Captain Tracy Steen from our Criminal Bureau. We're going to give you a brief on a 3-year-old missing person case that we've been investigating here at the Sheriff's Office. So you have the correct spelling on my name. It's Sheriff Michael Filicetti, F-I-L-I-C-E-T-T-I. I'll start with running you through a timeline of events regarding the case. The parties involved are Peter Dyer-Bakerly, the father of Olivia Ryford Dyer-Bakerly and Mason Ryford, and Katie Ryford, the ex of Peter and mother of Olivia and Mason. So on October 11, 2018, Peter Dyer-Bakerly filed a Niagara County Family Court petition for custody of his kids. November 3rd, 2018, this is the last time Peter sees Olivia and Mason. On February 1st, 2019, February 8th, 2019, and February 15th, 2019, Katie Ryford failed to appear in family court. On February 6th of 2019, Peter talked to Olivia via Katie's cell phone, and that was the last contact he had. February 7th, 2019 is the last time Olivia attended school here in New York State. February 15th, 2019, Peter Dyer-Bakerly was granted full custody of Olivia and Mason by Niagara County Family Court. Katie filed a written response which in part contained, "I have been forced into hiding." Also on February 15, 2019, Peter filed a report with our office trying to serve the order and locate his children. Katie's family was uncooperative with the service of that order, and a be on the lookout was entered for Katie and her vehicle at that time. February 16, 2019, Peter filed a second report for a custody problem. It was apparent Katie was avoiding the custody exchange. Again, Katie's family denied knowledge of her whereabouts. At that point, a missing person entry was created for Katie, Mason, and Olivia. On February 21st of 2019, family court warrant was issued for failure to comply with a family court mandate for Katie Ryford. For the next 3 years, our Criminal Investigation Bureau worked diligently to locate Katie, Olivia, and Mason. They followed any leads developed and any new information obtained. We used the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We used social media and news media as well to try to locate Katie, Olivia, and Mason. During this time, we asked the FBI for help. They offered intelligence and analyst work for us. The information they provided was very valuable to our investigation. I'd like to thank the FBI for their help in the investigation. The Niagara County District Attorney's Office was also assisting throughout this investigation with obtaining privileged information for us. Fast forwarding to March 1st, 2022, using information that was obtained from the FBI and independently gathered, our CIB, our Criminal Investigations Bureau, turned our attention to Albuquerque, New Mexico. With further investigation by our Criminal Investigation Bureau, it was determined that Katie, Olivia, and Mason were positively in that area. Katie Ryford had been living under a different identity, and Olivia and Mason were given a different last name. On March 2nd of this year, based upon that information, we were able to obtain a criminal court warrant for custodial interference in the first degree, which is an E felony. And the reason that is we were able to prove that she had taken the kids out of this state and went to New Mexico. Again, on March 2nd of this year, her exact location was confirmed. The U.S. Marshal Service in Buffalo was contacted. They in turn contacted the U.S. Marshal Task Force in Albuquerque. Last night in the evening, the Marshal Task Force located Katie, Olivia, and Mason at an address in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I want to thank the U.S. Marshal Service for their help too. Obviously, going across state lines is very difficult for us. Without their assistance, I don't think we would have been able to conclude this investigation. So what happens now? Olivia and Mason are in the custody of Children and Family Services in Albuquerque, and their father, Peter, is on his way to New Mexico to be reunited with his kids, and they're doing okay. Katie Ryford is in custody on the family court warrant, and the criminal court warrant for custodial interference. And I'm going to turn it over to the district attorney. He can talk to you a little bit about what the next steps are as far as the extradition process back from New Mexico.
Thank you. Brian Seaman, S-E-A-M-A-N. A criminal complaint was filed in the town of Wheatfield Court charging Ms. Rifford with a single count of custodial interference in the first degree. That is a felony charge, and a warrant was issued. As the sheriff indicated, Ms. Rifford has been taken into custody on that warrant in New Mexico, and extradition proceedings have been instituted. It's my expectation that sometime in the near future, the extradition proceedings in New Mexico will conclude, and she will be brought back to New York State to face these charges. Of course, any charge is simply an allegation unless and until the defendant is proven to have committed a crime. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Once she's returned, I do want to, because I think the question's going to come up, what's going to happen as far as bail? Due to bail reform, she's most likely going to be released when she gets brought back here. And we all, I think we acknowledge the fact that she's a considerable flight risk, as she's already been to New Mexico. But we'll wait to see how that plays out. Did I miss anything, Captain Steen?
I think you're all set, sir.
We're good? I just want to add, the investigation came to a successful conclusion due to the hard work of Captain Steen, who commands our Criminal Investigation Bureau, assistance from the District Attorney's Office, the FBI, the U.S. Marshal Service, and utilization of NCMEC. So at this point, we'll take any questions that you might have. Yes, Tom?
Mike, where does the dad live?
He lives in Massachusetts.
So obviously 3 years is a long time to be away. Is there any evidence that they went directly to New Mexico? Why New Mexico? And then also, in addition to the alias, you know, what other ways were they able to stay under the radar?
So I can only speculate that they went to New Mexico because it's a very large school district at that location in Albuquerque, and proof of who you are is very, it's not required that you provide much proof of who you are to register your kids in school or to get assistance, public type assistance. So she was able to stay off the radar in changing her name. The usual methods that we use to try to find people did not work. So it's my firm belief that she was getting help from family. We do believe there's some family that live in that area, and she was also getting help from family back here.
Why do you think she did it? Do you have a motive yet? Did she think she was in any danger? Tell us more about the backstory if you can.
Yeah, so what you're going to see on social media is assertions that Peter is an abusive father. She had to run and hide for her safety. I would recommend that you don't get your facts off of Facebook. That maybe family court and the sheriff's office and the DA's office may know a little bit more about the case than what people are saying on Facebook. Essentially, when things weren't going her way in the family court, she decided to start making allegations when things weren't going her way, and then decided just not to appear. That was her solution to the problem.
Do you know what her money source was while she was there? I mean, I know it's during the pandemic, so things were weird anyways, but how was she able to live herself and the 2 kids in that area?
Yeah, I can't confirm that at this time.
Okay.
You had mentioned about family there assisting her and family here as well. Could you elaborate a little bit more about that, and could they potentially face charges for aiding or abetting?
That'll be a later investigation. Our main goal was obviously to find her and the children and make sure that they were safe. You know, the family locally here was very uncooperative. They weren't very forthcoming with information. And we do know that there's family that resides down in that area in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So we're still looking into that to see exactly what level of assistance was provided. But it's very hard to believe that somebody could do this on their own without some help.
Were both kids in the school system there?
Yes.
How are the kids doing? Do they seem okay?
They seem okay based on what we've seen and talking to the U.S. Marshal Service down in Albuquerque.
What kind of circumstances were they in? Were they living in an apartment or a friend's house? Or
It's an apartment, correct? Yeah, they were living in an apartment.
Were they rented from by legal means? Like, did they have bank accounts, different falsified identification cards or anything like that, or was it just really nothing there and nobody was checking?
I'm not sure how they rented the apartment. I can only tell you that we know she was under an assumed identity, and the kids had different last names.
Did she work down there under that different identity?
She did not work.
Will the kids return to Massachusetts or come back here to Niagara County?
The way it looks right now, they would go back with their father to Massachusetts. That's still being worked out.
What was that phone call like to make to tell him that they were found?
You want to elaborate on that?
I was able to contact
No.
Peter. I was able to contact Peter last night, and when I did break that news to him, it was a very emotional phone call. The initial call and then a second call continued to be emotional throughout. I think he was very excited to hear the news.
Because the youngest kid was a baby, right? And now he's 3?
Right. The youngest would have been 1 at the time, and now he would be 4. So he wouldn't have known his father.
So that like when they're reunited, that's going to be huge.
Yeah. It'd be a very emotional time for them.
Can you say and spell your first and last name?
Sure. My first name is Tracy. My last name is Steen, S-T-E-E-N.
And also give us your title.
It's Captain of the Criminal Investigation Bureau.
Have you found-
One question about the last names. Was the defendant and I believe his name was Peter, were they married at one point in time and had another child after being divorced? Is that why there's different last names?
They were not married at all. The first name, I believe they're still together, so it's a hyphened last name. And then the second child is her maiden name.
Have you found any evidence about the allegations of abuse towards the mom from Peter? Or is that just social media rumors?
We did investigations early on in this about that, and they were all unfounded. Obviously, there's a lot of social media information that's put out there that's not always accurate.
Family court did give Peter, the dad, the custody of the kids, right?
Correct.
And just to be clear, originally there was a family court warrant on the mother, but she was arrested on a criminal court warrant. Is that because she moved out of state and you became aware of that?
Correct. In order to get the criminal court warrant, we had to prove that she had crossed state lines and taken the children.
And are they from Wheatfield or North Tonawanda?
I believe it's a North Tonawanda mailing address, but Wheatfield residents.
Are there any charges of anybody aiding and abetting her as a defendant in this case? Somebody around the family, in the apartment perhaps, or family that aided and abetted the flight?
We haven't looked into that right now. Our main investigation has been on finding the children and finding Katie and returning the children.
Can you talk about why the mother was not granted any custody whatsoever?
I cannot talk about that. That was a family court. We don't have access to the family court stuff. We're all part of the criminal process.
I can elaborate on that a little bit. So there was a custody hearing in process, and she failed to show up any further, so that's why custody was granted to the father.
Do you believe that her motive was what at this point?
Her motive? As I said earlier, I think things weren't going her way in family court, so she fled. Any other questions?
And she'll face state charges, correct?
State, yeah, it's New York State penal law charge. Custodial interference in the first degree, and there is still the warrant for failure to obey the court mandate from family court.
Any federal charges at all?
No.
How long does the extradition process normally take?
It depends on if she waives. It could be a matter of days. If she doesn't waive, it could be substantially longer.
It depends, it's case dependent. And if she were to contest extradition, that could be a lengthy process, and it would be completely dependent on the New Mexico court system. If she doesn't contest extradition, I would expect that it would be a fairly quick process.
What's the last name she was using down there?
I'm not going to disclose. It's still part of an active investigation, so I'm not going to disclose that at this point.
You indicated that it's likely that she would be released when she is brought back. What kind of tactics or moves could you make legally to get her reprimanded? I'm sure that's probably, or remanded, I'm sure that's what you want.
Well, under bail guidelines right now, it's an e-felony, and it's not likely that she will be remanded. I don't know of any tactics or, if I knew those, I'd be using them already with several other cases I've handled where people have walked out the front door. Anything else? All right, thanks everybody for coming.